Hello plant people, Nora the Leca Queen. Welcome to yet another Q&A session. I really love these. So thank you so much to all of you who asked a question, and let's get straight into it. The first question comes from Kelt, and Kelt Felmer would like to know if I've tried orchids in Leca. I know orchids do really well in semi-hydroponics. There's lots of people growing orchids successfully in Leca or pond. There's so many of them on YouTube. So I know they really love it. But I do have one orchid actually. I don't have like many. I've only got the one. This is my little orchid that's growing in Leca. Some of you might remember this little plant. I got this plant bargain buy. It cost me $1. So for people in the US, less than $1 for you. And it's been living in Leca for a few months now, and she's doing really well. She's living in a little tiny net pot. That's the net pot that she's living in, and she's given me one new leaf since I put her in there. She seems to be going okay. So that's my little orchid that's living in Leca. She's happy. So she's happy, I'm happy, and I hope she gets bigger and eventually flowers for me. I don't have too many of them because I prefer foliage plants. I'm not so much into flowers, but yes, that's my little orchid. On to the next one. Catherine wants to know if I can do a plant tour describing the different lighting conditions in my home. She says, I have so many plants. And yeah, Catherine, don't I know it? And she's wondering how I find window real estate for all of them. Yeah, window real estate is just, it's prime. But it's not only just about window real estate. It's about striking that balance between people actually living in the home and being able to have the home function as a home for people, and to have the plants having access to light. And when I say people, I don't just mean people. I'm talking about, I've got a 5-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 13-year-old. So, you know, they get everywhere, and I've got lots of poles. So if I'm not careful and discerning as to where I put my plants, we're going to have lots of disasters. And I couldn't really blame the kids because ultimately it's their home too. So it's striking that balance between the children, the plants, and trying to get as much light as I can for my plants. So unfortunately, I'm not going to do a plant tour for you just yet because I just moved home, and it's just, my plants are everywhere and I'm still trying to figure out where to place plants. My lighting situation in some of the areas is not the best. The lighting that I have in my new home is not as good as the light I had in my old home. So there's lots of adjustment for my plants, and I'm constantly moving things around, trying to get them to be in the best position they can be. So yes, I promise I will do a plant tour for you. As soon as I can get everything settled, I will definitely go there. So Catherine has another question. Catherine says, what do you do when a plant outgrows a pole and you don't want to extend the pole? Good question. So normally I actually do like to just extend the pole because I love them big and I love them tall. But sometimes it's just not practical, or I just, you know, I've had enough and I don't really want to see the plant do anymore. So what I do then is actually have the plant trail down. So, you know, when it's on a moss pole, the plant is going up. And then as it starts to keep growing, as it outgrown the moss pole, then you've got the vines just sort of going everywhere. So what I'll do is I'll pin those vines down and I'll start directing them down. So they still take advantage of the moss pole, but they're growing down. I've got my philodendron, a heart leaf that I've done this to, and I'll show that to you now. So this is my philodendron heart leaf that has outgrown its moss pole. It's not a very tall plant, so it got right to the top, and I decided that I didn't want to extend it. So all that I've done is actually pinned down those vines. So I've got, It's a bit, oh yeah, just about there. I've actually got this vine and I've pinned it to the moss so that the area roots that are going to attach to the moss pole and that vine is going to start growing down. And when it gets to the bottom, I'm going to turn it back up. So I'll keep doing that until there's virtually no moss pole real estate. And then at that point, I don't know what I'm going to do. So I think that's a problem for future me. But right now, this is what's happened with this plant. It's reached the top of its pole and all the vines that were sort of drooping over, I've pinned down to the moss pole and they're now growing down. So yeah, that's what I do. So next question is from Karen. Karen would like to know, she says, I have moss poles, but when I water the poles, the water goes into my plant. How do I prevent this? So Karen, yes, first of all, congratulations on having a moss pole. Yay! So obviously when you're watering your moss pole, you're watering it from the top and the water trickles down through the moss and there's nowhere that can go. Gravity dictates that water will eventually get to the base of the moss pole and that is then going to go into your, I'm assuming you're dealing with soil, into your soil. Now that's absolutely fine. There's no way you can actually stop that from happening. What you then need to do is actually let your plant sit for about an hour or so and let it drain. Instead of watering your moss pole and then watering your soil, you're just watering the moss pole. So the water trickles down through the moss pole, goes into the soil. And of course, when I say this, I'm assuming that you're actually really drenching your moss. So that water, nutrient solution, whatever you're using is really coming through. So you've got a great volume. And so your pot is actually getting very well watered or very well saturated with that nutrient solution or water. What you then do is just let it sit and let it drain. Let that drain. So you're not putting that back into your decorative pot or something and letting that plant sit in that water. That's not what you're doing, because if you do that, your plant will get root rot. So you just, either put it outside, leave it in the bathtub, wherever it is you're doing your watering, let it sit for an hour. And once the moss pole has drained, once the soil has drained and you don't have any more liquid coming out of it, it's well watered. You can then put it back where it lives, in its decorative pot or wherever. And that's pretty much how you do that. I demonstrate this in a video that I've done where I talk about watering moss poles. If you haven't seen it, just click on the link above and that'll take you straight to it. And that's pretty much all there is to watering a moss pole and making sure you're not getting root rot because you're double watering. Okay, that was a good question. So Pauline, hi Pauline, I remember you, Pauline. Pauline would like to know, she says, do you have to wait to transition your young plants to Leca, or do you put it in as early as possible from the shop? So she got some new plants and she doesn't know quite know when to put them up in Leca. So yes, Pauline, the second I get my plant, whether it's a cutting, whether it's a plant in soil, that goes straight into Leca. I don't have a period where I wanted to transition to, getting accustomed to my home or any of those kinds of things. I think the plant has already gone through enough. It's moved from the nursery, it's gone to the store, and then it's now in my home. So I don't want to traumatize it twice. I don't want to say, right, get used to my home, you're lovely, and then go, right, whack the soil off into Leca you go. So I just bang, I just do it once and it's done. So, I've got, for example, I've got my epipremnum here. I forget, I always sort of get that wrong. I'm just going to read it. Epipremnum amplissimum. Epipremnum amplissimum. This is a lovely little plant. Look at that foliage. Can you imagine what that will look like on a moss pole? She's going to be beautiful. So this one, I got a teeny tiny plant and she's going through the long method of soil to Leca transition. And of course, check out my little nachos propagation bottle. Hey, I use anything and everything. I never throw away all my bottles because I'm always propagating and always transitioning from soil to leca. So this particular one has been living in my solution and she's almost ready to pot up now, and I'm going to pot that up, and she's still small. So another reason why I actually I like to get small plants. I usually don't like to get very big plants because it's easier to transition a plant when it's smaller to leca, and it has a better time transitioning. It has an easier time. I'll show you another plant that I got. I've got this plant right here. This is a blue star fern. Look at that. It's beautiful. Look at that, like green bluish hue on that plant. It's absolutely fabulous. So I got this plant a few weeks ago, actually. So this is a little bit of a spoiler to all you fern lovers out there. I'm doing something with ferns. Watch out for that video. So anyway, I got this plant and it's still living in soil. And the only reason it's still living in soil is I don't have enough leca. I need to go to the store and get me some leca because there's so many projects I can't finish off because I've got no leca. But this plant is actually living outside. It's not even in my home. It's being quarantined. I'm not going to bring this soil in my home because I don't want to get gnats or whatever nasties are living in that soil. So this one is still living outside, and the second I get my leca, this will go straight out of the soil and I'll start to transition it, or whatever it is I'm going to do with it. But yes, I do it immediately. I do not wait. I transfer my plants from soil to leca as soon as I get them. Thank you for that question, Pauline. Missy has a problem with her Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. Don't you just love how that sounds? Such a mouthful. So she says, I have a Rhaphidophora tetrasperma that recently had a new leaf with black on it. Any ideas? Ooh, that is a bit of a tricky question, Missy. It's really difficult to address because I've got no pictures. I have no idea what your plant looks like. So everything that I'm saying is just completely, it might not even apply, but I will try anyway. So I've got my little Monstera Peru that's going to help me explain what I'm trying to say. So this is my little Monstera Peru. Look at how fabulous. This plant is just fabulous. Look at that, like almost reptilian leaf structure. It's just absolutely gorgeous. So this little plant, of course, is living in leca, and one of my trailing plants, don't you know it? She's not on a moss pole, and she's doing really well in her leca. No issues with her whatsoever. As you can see, I think she's really, really loving the leca. But look at what happened here. Look at this leaf right here. I have no idea what happened. It just came out looking like that. And then this is the next one after that. She's beautiful. And there's a new leaf coming as well. There's a new leaf coming there. So I don't know, Missy. I didn't do anything different. She's living in the exact same spot she's always lived on. Same nutrient solution. I don't know. I cannot explain it. If anyone out there has an explanation for this and maybe can help Missy out, please, 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 I'd like to hear about it. Please let me know in the comments below. Why do you just from nowhere get a black leaf when a plant's been doing well and there's no problems with the leaves after that? I'd really like to know. We got Danetta Daniels. Hi, Danetta. I just love to see you guys come back, for the Q&A sessions and you're asking your questions. And one of the things I really love about these sessions, actually, it's not just about me giving you information. It helps me as well because sometimes I don't know the answers to your questions and it forces me to go looking. It forces me to go asking the questions, finding the best information I can find to come and give you. And if I don't have that information, I will say outright that I don't know. Can someone out there help me? So it helps you and it helps me become better plant parents. So thank you to all of you guys who keep coming back. Now, back to Danetta. Danetta says, have you ever had any plants that did not survive in Leca? Or some plants that are really not growing in Leca? Look, if you've been to these Q&As before, you will know all about my maidenhair fern. You will know all about some of my jewel alocasias. This is not a secret. There are some plants that are just not, I'm not doing well with in Leca. And I don't think that's an issue with the Leca itself. I think it's an issue with what I'm doing, because Leca is just a medium and it's about me providing the right conditions to help that plant thrive. So it's either I'm not providing enough light, there's something going on with the root system because, you know, either my reservoir is too high or there isn't enough ventilation or the nutrient solution is not mixed properly. It could be a myriad of things, but I don't think it's anything to do with the Leca per se. I think it's got everything to do with user error. So I've got my little Rhaphidophora actually. I've got a Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. This one, it's been living in Leca for a few months now, probably a year even. And it is just struggling. I just can't get this plant to thrive. I can't show it to you because I've got it attached to my staircase. So it is growing, but it's just not growing as well as it should. So I think that's my really, really not so very good story at the moment, apart from, of course, the ones that died. You know, I'm taking this semi-hydro journey, this Leca journey. It's a journey. And I realize and I acknowledge that there's so many things I don't know and there's so many things I have to learn. And there will be some casualties along the way. So, you know, I thank the plants that I kill and I thank them for helping me learn more as I was killing them. And I become better for the next plant. And yeah, that's pretty much all I can say, Danetta. Spa, Peggy, and meatballs. Oh my gosh. You guys, some of you guys are so creative. Spa, Peggy, and meatballs. That is just so super. It's Spa Peggy would like to know, what's the lifespan on the moss poles that you make? And Spa Peggy says they like the ones with the plastic backing and they'd like to know if there's any maintenance that I need to do on them. And they're particularly curious as to how long the moss poles last. Look, I've been doing moss poles for about 3 years now, I think, or going on to 3 years. And I haven't particularly noticed any issue with degradation. I mean, it probably could be that 3 years is not a long enough time to see that happen. So it's something I will look out for. And I guess ultimately, if the moss does degrade, all I'd need to do is open up the moss pole and pack in some more moss and close it back up again. I think that's what I would do. But like I said, I haven't really had that issue. So this is my golden ivy. I've had this this is one of my oldest moss poles. And this golden ivy, I mean, this would be the moss that I put in there 3 years ago. So that's what that looks like. That moss is 3 years old at the most. So, and that seems to be still okay. So like I said, I don't know whether that's a big issue. I mean, that's not something I worry about. And like I said, if it does happen, all I'd need to do is open up my moss pole. So I'd probably just take off the cable ties there, take that plastic sheeting off, and the plant's still there. And then I'll just pack in more moss and I'll put this back on. And that should be fine, I think. But yeah, that's what I would do. So the next question was about any special maintenance for moss pole with a plastic sheet backing. No, not at all. The only maintenance that you have to do, of course, is keep the moss moist. That's it. Otherwise, it's too easy. And of course, if you do want to get your plant to be taller, you can always extend it. So as you can see at this point here, I have extended this moss pole. So that's pretty much all you need to do. There's not there's no maintenance that goes with the moss poles. So just keep the moss poles moist and extend it if you need to. If you're enjoying these videos, please subscribe to my channel. Please like the videos, because as you do that, that makes them more available to other people and it does help my channel to grow. So thank you. The next question is from Lee. What are the largest ceramic pots that I have? So I'll show you 2 ceramic pots, Lee. I've got this pot over here. This pot is 23 centimeters high and 23 centimeters across. And this one here is 20 centimeters high and across. So this one I got online from an online store here in Australia. And this one I got from Kmart here in Australia as well. And especially the Kmart one, that was really, really cheap considering what this is. And it is heavy. It is quite heavy. And I really love these ceramic pots because they help me keep my moss poles upright. This is one of the methods that I use to ensure that my moss poles don't topple over, because the heavy ceramic pots actually provide support on the side. So I definitely encourage you to invest in some ceramic pots where you can. And like I said, they don't have to be expensive. Look around. I love to go to Kmart. Kmart generally has some really, really good value pots. TK Maxx, they've got lots of fabulous, well-priced pots as well. So yeah, I would definitely encourage you to get some. Lee would like to know, how do I judge the amount of water to pour into an opaque net pot when I'm not able to get clear ones? I have my Hoya here, and this Hoya is living in an opaque net pot because she's growing, and you know, I couldn't find a clear one for her. I could only get a dark one because they were out of stock during COVID. You know what that was like. But anyway, so she's going to help me talk about this. So she's living in her reservoir here. And when I was potting this plant up, of course, when I'm potting a plant up, I fill the pot a third of the way with Leca, and my roots are sitting at the top. So I know that my reservoir needs to be at less than a third of the pot. So of course, because you can't see where the roots are in a opaque pot, you sort of get a feel for how much you need the more you do it. So when I've got my reservoir here, you know, my reservoir has got these little graduations, these lines. So I kind of know that on a pot like this, I'll sort of put it on the second line there. And when I do that, I put the pot in and then I lift it back out again. And you can actually see that there's a level where that's the level at which the water is at. And just that little visual guide helps me know where the nutrient solution is going to be in the reservoir. And if it's too high, then I'll just tip, you know, the excess out. And that's pretty much how I do it. Luzette. Hi, Luzette. Luzette wants to know if I've got any hanging pots with Leca, and how do you maintain the hanging pots? So answer to your question is no, I do not have any hanging pots. And the only reason I don't have any hanging pots is I just haven't gone through the whole thing of hanging stuff where in my home, so I don't do that. But in theory, it shouldn't be a problem if you can actually reach that pot easily and you can get it off its hook, or however it is you're hanging it up in the air. That shouldn't be a problem. You treat it the same way as you would any reservoir. So I've got my Hoya here, and I've got this pot. I mean, she's not really living in this pot, but I've just used this as an example because if this was a hanging pot, it'd probably be suspended up there and my plant would be there. Now, this pot is a ceramic pot and it doesn't have a hole in it. So it would be perfect reservoir and it would be hanging up there. So all I need to do is get this down from where it's hanging, fill it up if I need to, and put it back up. As long as, of course, wherever it's hanging is able to support the weight of the pot, the plant, and the nutrient solution. And that's how that would go. And when it's time to flush it, do the same thing. Take it down, flush, new nutrient solution, put it back up, and that should work just fine. So if you do have some hanging pots, I would certainly for sure do that. Yeah, definitely go for it. Now, Mr. ASMR, hi fellow Aussie. I think you're a Sydney sider, if I remember correctly. Good to hear from you. And Mr. ASMR would love to know, what is the white film that grows on a cutting when propagating in water? The white film that you see when you're propagating is called, in layman's term, mucky film. It's mucky, like it's yucky. It's mucky film. The technical term for it is a biofilm. Biofilm. What is a biofilm? A biofilm is usually a thin resistant layer of microorganisms that coats a surface, right? That's pretty much what it is. So it's a group of microorganisms, which could be bacteria, there could be fungi, it could be one group of organisms, it could be many groups of organisms, and they're living on a surface. And this surface could be an aqueous surface, so a watery surface, like your propagation media. It could be your bench top, it could even be your teeth. So what happens? How does a biofilm occur? So a biofilm occurs because you've got a little bit of bacteria or fungi walking along, minding its own business, finding a surface and going, oops, I think I'd like to live here. And they start to live there and they invite all their friends and they start to multiply. And then that is how you get a biofilm. So a very easy way of explaining what a biofilm is and how it happens is when you don't brush your teeth. So when you don't brush your teeth, an oral biofilm occurs in your mouth and your teeth feel yucky and furry because you haven't brushed them. What's happened there is that the bacteria that's in your mouth and whatever else that's living in your mouth has gone, hang on, yeah, I'm just going to attach to the teeth surface, thank you very much, and I'm going to start to grow there. And that's what happens. So if you leave that on for too long, then you're going to start having issues like dental plaque and you start having gum disease and all sorts of yuckiness. So a biofilm starts off relatively, benign and relatively treatable. But of course, if you leave it on for too long, then it might start to cause problems. So let's go back to cuttings. So when you've got your cutting, not just a cutting, anything, there's lots of bacteria and fungi and all sorts of microorganisms living on surfaces everywhere, all over the place. So when you get a plant, make a cutting, and you put it in the water, there's bacteria in that water, there's bacteria on that plant. And the longer you leave it, it has time to attach and it starts to multiply, which is why on day one, you won't see that film. But as time goes on, the water gets murkier and murkier and murkier. So when the bacteria or the microorganisms initially attach, it's really small. It's a thin film that's probably naked to the eye. So the water still looks quite clear. But as time goes on, it multiplies and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, this biofilm. So you can start to see, and that's why that solution starts to look mucky. So now, why is this important to know when you're propagating? So when you're propagating, you need to change your water. Some people say change it every day. Some people say change it every 2 days, every 3 days, whatever. Have a system. You need to change it because if you don't change it, you are going to have that biofilm getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it will eventually start to affect your plant, your cutting. And what is actually recommended when you are changing your water is take the water, throw it out, wash the container or your propagation vessel, wash that out. Take the cutting clean it off in the water as well, because that biofilm is living on pretty much all the surfaces. So that's the surface of the plant, the surface of the cutting, the surface of the propagation vessel of that, bottle or whatever it is you're using. So that's really important. Another important thing is when you're propagating and you're using something like Clonex clone solution like I do, then you're actually, it's not just water, you're actually providing food, you're actually providing nutrition. So the bacteria is going to be really happy, I've got a place to live and I've got food, so I'm going to multiply as much as I can. So especially when you're using additives for propagation, you need to be changing out that solution as regularly as you can. So Mr. ASMR, I hope I have addressed your question. That's what that is. It's a biofilm. David would like an update on some of my older moss pole installations. Yeah, David, I think I did respond to you in the comments, and I have done a video where I show some updates. If you haven't seen it, just click on the link above and that will take you straight to it, and it'll show you what some of the plants that I've put up on moss poles on this channel are doing and what they look like now. Dolly Caldwell. Hi, Dolly. Dolly would like to know what's the size of my pots and where do I purchase them from? Purchase my pots from our local store here called Bunnings, and Bunnings have clear pots, and that's what I really, really love. I can get clear pots because I love a clear pot. I like to see what's happening within my plant root ecosystem with a clear pot. So I've got this little pot right here. This is my 10 centimeter pot. So it's 10 centimeter high and 10 centimeter wide. This is primarily the mainstay of pots. I use this pot a lot, and quite a lot of my plants live in this little pot. And of course, when I get this pot, it doesn't have these ventilation holes. I make those myself. If you haven't seen the video where I do that, just click on the link above and that'll take you straight to it. So that's my 10 centimeter pot. Very good for Hoyas when they're still quite tiny. I've got a 14 centimeter pot as well. So my peace lily here, my giant peace lily, is living in a 14 centimeter pot. I've got this huge ZZ plant there, and that's living in a 20 centimeter pot. Oh, that's dripping all over me. There, that's better. That is a 20 centimeter pot. So for my bigger plant, I use this one. This is actually the biggest pot size that I've got. I would love to have maybe a like 16 or 18 centimeter pot. I can't find that one. They don't stock that one at all. And sometimes I'm forced to use a black pot because I can't find that clear pot, and the 20 centimeter pot is way too big and the 14 centimeter pot is too small. So those are my pots. I will put some links below to some pots that are slightly similar to what I'm using. And of course, I will say that these are pots that are on Amazon that I haven't used myself. So they are pots that people use for semi-hydroponics. So this is just a suggestion. I have no idea where you can get pots like these in the US or in other countries, I'm afraid. Apolika, I hope I'm saying that right. Apolika says, for plants transitioned from soil, when do you clean up the dark roots after they're in Leca? I am worried about disturbing the roots too frequently, but I feel the old roots need to be taken off. This is a really interesting question, and I think it's a question that's easily addressed if you use the long method of Leca transfer. So if you really don't want your soil roots to be in with your Leca, you could use the long method. And when you use the long method, keep the plant in the solution for a longer time. So you've got your water roots coming through, and then you're able to get rid of the dark soil roots. So I'll use an example of this epipremnum. So this has been sitting in the solution for quite a number of weeks at the moment. So generally I wouldn't have left it in there for this long, but like I said, I need to get more leca, so I can't pot it up right now. But what's happened is I've got way more water roots now than when I started, than I would have had if I just left it there for a few weeks. And you can see this right here is a soil root, and that's just coming off. That's gone, right? So in theory, I could actually get rid of there. I've got that off, and now I'm really just left with water roots or soil roots that are really quite happy to be in that hydro environment for a really long time. But if you really don't want them, you could get rid of that because you've still got enough water roots to sustain the plant. So that's one way I would go, and that's another one. Take a look at that. So you could just get rid of the soil roots and that should be fine. Another thing you could do is actually, at the point where you're moving your plant from soil to leca, is just completely cut off all the roots. This is a radical method that some people use, and I know one of my good friends from Instagram, Room with Rye, I think he definitely does that. He believes in just completely getting the roots off and putting the plant in leca and having the plant just start again. Develop leca roots from the beginning, no water roots. He has great success with doing that. I haven't tried that method myself, but that's something that you could try. And if you do try it, I'd really be interested to see how you go. So let me know in the comments below. So next up is Carol and Rosalie. Carol and Rosalie would like to know more about growth technology root zone. This is a product that I use and it makes part of my special sauce, which is Clonix Clone Solution and Root Zone. Root Zone is an organic product that is manufactured by Growth Technology, the same company that produces Foliage Focus, and they were the first to produce Clonix, which is a rooting gel. It's their first organic product, taking them this long to get to market because they want to make sure they get it right, because they don't do things by half. So Root Zone is designed to be used throughout the lifespan of your plant. I don't know how long plants live for, but as long as you have your plant, it can be used. So this is how you can use the Growth Technology products, right? So you've got Clonix, which is a rooting gel. So once you've got your cuttings, you've got Clonix to help it get roots. Then you've got Clonix Clone Solution. The Clonix Clone Solution is going to feed your cuttings and help them grow and help those roots get going. You can then use Foliage Focus or whichever nutrient you choose to use to maintain your plant. Now, how does Root Zone come into this? Root Zone is organic and it is designed to improve root health. So you can use Root Zone in conjunction with your Clonix Clone Solution, and you can use it in conjunction with your Foliage Focus. So you mix them together. It is not a nutrient, it is an additive. So you add it to the nutrient. Organic, remember. So Root Zone is actually not yet commercially available. They're still tweaking a few things, maybe. They're still testing it out, making sure everything is as it should be. There are a few people out there testing it out, and fortunately, I happen to be one of them, so I can tell you what I have experienced, and obviously based on the things I've been saying, you can gather that it's been positive. It's worked out really well for me, and I'm so much looking forward for this product to be available commercially so all of you can have access to it. So that's my Root Zone there. I love it, and as soon as it's available, I will let you know where you can find it. I have left the best question for last. Deborah Baker would love to know, if you had to evacuate, which two plants from your collection would you save? You know what? This one really got me. It really got me because I don't know. I have no idea. Definitely bring my Florida Ghost. I would definitely be bringing her. I can't even get her in the frame. She's huge. She's beautiful. Look at that. Look at her. She is one amazing mama. I am definitely bringing my Florida Ghost. I might bring my little variegated fiddle leaf fig. I love her. I've got a bigger one, but this one just does it for me. Look at how glorious she is. You know, she's lost 2 leaves, but check out new leaf right there. She's absolutely stunning. She's stunning. I love her. And I'm really hoping that, you know, in the next 5 years, I will have a pretty formidable plant. And yeah, I think I'd bring her. I don't know. But thankfully, that's a decision I won't have to make, because that's just impossible. It's like Sophie's Choice. It's exactly like Sophie's Choice. And I would definitely not like to be in that position, you know. But yeah, I'm really loving these 2 at the moment. So thank you for that, you know, very emotional question, Deborah. It really threw me, and I just couldn't decide. Before I go, I would just love to thank my 3 patrons. I have had 3 people join my Patreon, and I am so grateful. I'm really, really grateful. Some of the messages that I get from you guys, they just fill my heart to no end. You know, I started doing, you know, YouTube just like, yeah, you know, let's see how I go. I think maybe I have something to say. But you guys have just really, really given me that boost to give it my all. You have really showered me with love, and I feel so, so appreciated. And particularly to the 3 people who've put their hand up and decided to be my patrons, I am eternally grateful. I really, really am. Well, anyway, I need to say one more thing. I know that I have had the question about grow lights. I know lots of you keep asking me about grow lights, and this is something that I am deliberately not addressing, and that's because I have a mishmash of grow lights, and my grow light situation is still in flux. I'm still figuring out what I'm doing. I'm still deciding. So when I do have something concrete, I will definitely share with you what I'm doing with my plants and what grow lights I'm using and how I'm using them. So thank you very much for watching all the way up to the end. And I look forward to all your questions. The Q&A post is up on my community tab. So just go onto my account, go to the community tab, and you will find a post on there that says ask me anything, and that video will be ready for publishing on the 22nd of June. So please put all your questions in the comments and I will get to them when I can. Thank you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.